The surface of the ocean is a mirror. When we stand upon the shoreline, looking out at the horizon where the water meets the sky, we see a reflection of our own world. It is bright, rhythmic, and familiar. The waves crash with a sound that comforts us, a heartbeat that has pulsed against the continents since the land first rose from the sea. Here in the sunlight, the ocean is blue and inviting. We watch the seabirds dip and dive. We see the flash of silver scales as schools of fish break the surface. It feels like a place of life, energetic and awake. But this sunlit veneer is only a thin skin, a deceptive boundary that hides the true nature of the planet we call home. To truly understand the ocean, and to understand why the creatures within it transform from the beautiful to the grotesque, we must leave the air behind. We must slip beneath the waves and begin a long, slow fall into the history of the earth. Imagine for a moment that you are weightless. The noise of the wind and the chaos of the shore are instantly silenced as you submerge. There is a sudden, enveloping quiet. In the first few meters, the light is dazzling. Rays of the sun dance through the water like golden curtains, creating shifting patterns on the white sand below. This is the epipelagic zone, the realm of light. Here, life resembles the world we know. The fish are streamlined, muscular, and colored in ways that make sense to our eyes. Silvers, blues, and bright yellows. They rely on speed and vision. They hunt and hide in a game of cat and mouse that is illuminated by the sun. But as we drift deeper, gravity takes hold, pulling us down toward the true ocean. As we descend past 20 meters, then 30, the quality of the light begins to change. The water acts as a filter, a thief that steals the colors of the rainbow one by one. The first to disappear is red. It is a strange phenomenon to witness. If you were to look at a bright red reef fish at this depth without an artificial torch, it would appear black. The wavelength of red light lacks the energy to penetrate this density of water. It is absorbed, swallowed by the blue. This is the first step into the alien. It is a subtle warning that the rules of physics here are different. Blood at this depth looks like dark ink. The warmth of the sun is fading, replaced by a cooling embrace that presses against the skin. We continue to sink. 50 meters, 100 meters. The golden curtains of the surface are gone. The water is no longer a transparent medium. It has become a substance, a heavy sapphire mist that stretches in every direction. This is the big blue that sailors and divers speak of with a mixture of reverence and vertigo. There is no floor, no ceiling, only an infinite gradient of indigo. It creates a profound sense of isolation. In this vast, blue void, there is nowhere to hide. This lack of shelter is the first evolutionary pressure that drives the strange appearances of deep-sea life. On land, a creature can hide behind a tree or burrow into the earth. In the open ocean, the only cover is the light itself. And so, nature begins to experiment. We see the first hints of the creepiness that will define the depths below. We see transparency. Creatures here, like the delicate comb jellies and certain larvae, have abandoned color entirely. They have become ghosts. Their bodies are made of water and gel, rendering them nearly invisible to the predators that patrol the blue. They drift like clear glass sculptures, visible only when the light catches the rhythmic beating of their cilia, breaking the sunlight into tiny, fleeting rainbows. It is beautiful, yes, but there is something unsettling about a living thing that you can look right through. It challenges our understanding of biology. We expect flesh, bone, and blood. But here, life is water organized into a grand design. As we drift down to 200 meters, we reach the edge of the twilight zone, the mesopelagic. The sun is now just a faint memory, a pale moon-like glow far above our heads. The blue has deepened into a rich, dark purple. The temperature drops rapidly here, a boundary known as the thermocline. It is a physical wall of cold that separates the warm surface world from the deep interior. Crossing it feels like stepping into a refrigerated room. The water here is old. It has not touched the atmosphere for years, perhaps decades. And here, the shadows begin to lengthen. The creatures we encounter at this threshold are no longer the streamlined athletes of the surface. They are the watchers. Evolution has prioritized one sense above all others in this fading light: vision. We drift past fish with eyes that seem far too large for their heads, great glassy orbs designed to capture the last few stray photons that filter down from the world of men. These eyes do not blink. They stare upward, forever locked in a gaze toward the surface, watching for the silhouette of prey against the dying light. This permanent, upward stare gives them an expression of eternal shock, a rigidity that feels unnatural to us. Why do we find these features creepy? Perhaps it is because as humans we rely on facial cues to understand intent. We look for emotion, for softness. But the face of a deep-sea dweller is a rigid mask of survival. There is no room for expression in the twilight. There is only the mechanics of hunting and hiding. The hatchet fish, a small denizen of this zone, is a perfect example. Its body is thin, like a silver coin, making it hard to see from below. But its eyes are tubular, pointing permanently upward, like binoculars fixed to its skull. Its mouth is a grim, downturned slit. It looks like a melancholy ghost, drifting in the semi-darkness. It is not a monster. It is merely a master of this specific intensity of light. But to our eyes, it is a caricature of life, a distortion of the familiar fish form. The silence here is heavy. On the surface, the ocean is loud, the crash of waves, the cry of gulls, the hum of ship engines. Here, the silence is a physical weight. It presses against the eardrums. It is a silence that has lasted for millions of years. In this quiet, we become acutely aware of the vastness of the water column. We are suspended in a void that covers 70% of our planet, yet we know less about it than we do the surface of the moon. This unknown generates a primal fear. It is the fear of what we cannot see, the fear of what might be watching us from the dark water just beyond our range of vision. As we descend further, approaching 400 meters, the blue fades to a dusky gray. We are entering the realm of the vertical migrators. During the day, these creatures hide in the depths to avoid predators, but at night, they rise in a massive living cloud to feed near the surface. It is the largest migration of biomass on Earth, and it happens every single evening, unseen by humanity. This layer of life is so dense that early sonar operators during the Second World War thought it was the sea floor. They called it the false bottom. But it was not rock and sand. It was a wall of living bodies, squid, lanternfish, jellyfish, and shrimp, billions of them huddled together in the gloom. To survive in this zone, where the light is barely a shimmer, a new strategy emerges: counter-illumination. We see creatures with bellies that glow. They have photophores, light-producing organs, lining their undersides. This is not to see, but to hide. By matching the faint intensity of the light coming from above, they erase their own shadows. If a predator looks up from below, they see nothing but the faint gray of the surface water. The creature effectively vanishes. It is a cloak of invisibility woven from light itself. But to witness this up close is to see a creature that looks artificial, studded with glowing diodes like a submerged machine. It blurs the line between the organic and the mechanical, adding to the sense of unease. Reflect for a moment on the concept of creepy. Usually we find things creepy when they are ambiguous. A humanoid robot that looks almost real, but moves stiffly, falls into the uncanny valley. Deep-sea creatures inhabit a biological uncanny valley. They are clearly fish or squid or crustaceans, but they are warped. They are elongated or compressed or transparent. They are the stuff of nightmares, not because they are inherently evil, but because they are distortions of the rules we understand. In the sunlit world, life is vibrant and solid. Here, life is ghostly and fragile. The pressure is now building. At 500 meters, the weight of the water above us is crushing. It is equivalent to having a small car balanced on every square inch of your body. We cannot feel it inside our submersible vessel of imagination, but the creatures outside feel it. It shapes them. To survive this pressure, they cannot have air spaces. Air compresses and collapses. So they are made of water and gelatinous flesh. They lack the rigid skeletal structures of surface fish. If you were to bring a blobfish to the surface, it would collapse into a miserable pile of pink jelly, a face melting into sadness. This is the image that made it famous as the world's ugliest animal. But down here in its home, the blobfish is sleek. It is buoyed by the pressure. It is we who are the aliens here, bringing our low-pressure biology into a high-pressure world. The ugliness is simply a consequence of taking a creature out of its context. It is a reminder that we are judging these beings by the standards of the sky when they belong to the standards of the abyss. We are now deep in the twilight. The sun is gone. If you look up, there is no difference between the water and the sky. Both are black. We are suspended in an endless night. This is the threshold of shadows. The creatures here are becoming stranger. We see the viperfish, a predator with teeth so long they curve back over its eyes. It cannot close its mouth. Its jaw is a permanent cage of needle-sharp bone. Why such weaponry? Because in the dark, meals are rare. If you find something to eat, you cannot afford to let it escape. The environment dictates the form. The scarcity of food turns the mouth into a trap. The darkness turns the eyes into telescopes. The pressure turns the body into gel. It is here, in this transition from the gray to the black, that the imagination begins to run wild. For centuries, sailors looked down into the water and imagined leviathans. They drew maps with warnings, "Here be dragons." And in a way, they were right. The dragons are real, but they are small, fierce, and desperate. They are fighting a war for survival in a place where the sun never shines. As we drift deeper, the water seems to thicken. The particles of marine snow, organic detritus falling from the surface, drift past us like white flakes in a winter storm. This is the food of the deep. The waste of the upper world becomes the feast of the lower. It is a somber realization that the deep ocean is a graveyard, catching the falling remains of everything that dies above. Every whale that perishes, every shark, every plankton bloom, eventually they all drift down here. The deep sea is the recycler of the planet. It is a place of death, but also of rebirth. The creatures here are the caretakers of this constant rain. We pause here at the 600-meter mark. We are hovering in the dark, but it is not yet the total black of the abyss. There are flashes of blue and green in the distance, bioluminescence. Life is creating its own light now. We have left the influence of the sun behind completely. We are entering a world where the only light that exists is the light made by living things. It is a profound shift. Up until now, all life we have known is powered by the sun, either directly through photosynthesis or indirectly by eating plants. But as we go deeper, we are moving toward a world that operates on different energy, different rules, and different time. The pacing of life slows down here. The cold makes metabolism sluggish. A heart that beat 100 times a minute on the surface might beat only a few times a minute here. Creatures move with a deliberate, slow grace. They drift rather than swim. They wait. This waiting is perhaps the most unnerving aspect of the deep. On the surface, predators chase. Here, they hang in the void, motionless, like suspended animatronics, waiting for something to touch a sensory hair or brush against a tentacle. It is a world of ambush, a world of patience that stretches for days or weeks. Consider the loneliness of this existence. To be a solitary hunter in a volume of water so vast that you might not see another of your own kind for months. It brings a sense of melancholy to the scene. These monsters are not raging beasts. They are lonely survivors clinging to existence in the largest, coldest, darkest habitat on Earth. As we prepare to leave the twilight zone and descend into the bath-hypelagic, the midnight zone, we must steel ourselves. The last vestiges of the familiar are gone. The blue has turned to black. The shapes of the fish are no longer recognizable as fish. They are becoming eels, jellies, and demons. The eyes will disappear, or they will become terrifyingly large. The teeth will grow. The bodies will dissolve into shadows. We are crossing the line into the true unknown. The ocean creates a mirror not just of the sky, but of our own psyche. As we stare into the deepening dark, we project our fears into the void. We see faces in the shadows. We imagine tentacles reaching up. But the reality is far more fascinating than our nightmares. The reality is a testament to the incredible adaptability of life. That something can live here, that something can hunt here, is a miracle of biology. So, let us take a breath, or the mental equivalent of one. Let us release the memory of the sun, the warmth of the sand, and the color of the sky. Those things do not exist where we are going. We are descending into a world of eternal night, where the creatures are living constellations and the silence is loud enough to break your heart. We are moving from the twilight into the dark. The creepiness is no longer just a visual trick. It is a survival necessity. And as we sink, the water closes over us, sealing the exit, inviting us to witness the phantoms of the invisible world. The descent continues, not with a sudden plunge, but with the gradual hypnotic rhythm of a falling leaf. We have left the surface world far behind, and with it, the comfort of the sun. We are now fully immersed in the mesopelagic zone, a region of the ocean that poetic oceanographers have long called the twilight zone. It is a fitting name. It captures the liminal nature of this place, a world trapped between the day above and the eternal night below. Here, the light is a phantom. It is a faint, monochromatic blue that seems to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, a pervasive, dusky glow that barely registers on the human retina. If you were to hold your hand out in front of your face at this depth, it would be a silhouette, a shadow against a backdrop of infinite indigo. In this realm of fading illumination, the rules of survival shift dramatically. In the sunlit waters, camouflage meant blending in with the reef or the sand, matching patterns and colors. But here in the open water column, there is no background. There are no rocks, no corals, no waving seagrass to hide behind. There is only water. To hide here, one must not merely match the environment, one must become the environment. And so, nature has devised a solution that seems to belong more to the realm of science fiction than biology. Invisibility. Drifting past us now, suspended in the silent current, is a creature that defies the very idea of biological substance. It is the glass octopus. At first glance, it is not there at all. It is a shimmering distortion in the water, a ripple that has taken shape. As your eyes adjust to the gloom, the outline reveals itself. It is a masterpiece of transparency. Its skin, its muscles, and its gelatinous mantle are entirely clear. It is a living sculpture made of ocean water, held together by a thin membrane of life. The only parts of the glass octopus that are visible are the organs that physics will not allow to be transparent. We see the opaque, needle-thin optic nerve connecting the eyes to the brain, looking like a delicate white wire suspended in a gel. We see the digestive tract standing vertically to minimize its shadow, and we see the eyes themselves, rectangular, golden, and strange. In a world where casting a shadow means death, the glass octopus has achieved the ultimate stealth. It has erased itself from the visual field. Consider the evolutionary complexity required to achieve this. Flesh is naturally opaque. Muscle fibers, blood vessels, and nerves usually scatter light, creating color and form. To become transparent, this creature had to alter the very structure of its tissues, arranging its cells in a way that allows light to pass through them without bending or reflecting. It is a triumph of optical engineering. Watching it drift, pulsating gently, one cannot help but feel a sense of unease. We are accustomed to life having weight, solidity, and color. To see a living, thinking predator that looks like a ghost challenges our perception of reality. It is a phantom of the twilight, watching us with golden eyes while we struggle to see it at all. This drive toward invisibility is not unique to the octopus. The mesopelagic is filled with these living ghosts. Small crustaceans, amphipods, and strange worm-like arrows dart through the gloom, all crafted from the same clear gelatin. They are like animate glass, fragile and beautiful. But this invisibility comes with a philosophical cost. In the human world, we strive to be seen, we build monuments, we create art, we speak loudly to ensure our presence is acknowledged. We fear being ignored. But here in the deep, to be seen is to end. Anonymity is the only armor. The goal of life in the twilight is to leave no trace, to cast no shadow, to reflect no light. It is a humble, quiet existence, dedicated to the art of non-existence. But not all creatures here choose transparency. Some have taken a different path, turning to the physics of reflection. As we descend further, reaching depths of 700 meters, we encounter the hatchetfish again. But now we see the brilliance of its design. Its body is extremely flattened from side to side, thin as a wafer. Its flanks are not merely silver, they are mirrored. They are covered in layers of guanine crystals that reflect the surrounding light with perfect fidelity. Imagine a mirror hanging in a blue room. If you look at the mirror, you see only more blue. The mirror disappears into the background. This is the strategy of the hatchetfish. By reflecting the dim blue light of the mesopelagic, it becomes a patch of water, indistinguishable from the void behind it. It is a cloak of invisibility woven from silver. But there is a flaw in this design. Mirrors only work if the light is uniform. If a beam of bioluminescence hits a mirrored fish, it flares up like a beacon in the night. It is a gamble, a high-stakes game of optical hide-and-seek played out in the crushing cold. As we drift through this hall of mirrors and glass, it is worth remembering that for most of human history, this world was completely unknown. It was a theoretical space, a blank spot on the map of our understanding. It was not until the 1930s that human eyes first looked directly into the twilight zone. The story of William Beebe and Otis Barton is a testament to the human curiosity that drives us to these inhospitable places. Picture a steel sphere barely 1.5 meters across. The walls are thick, cold iron. Inside, 2 men are curled up, knees to chests, tangled in telephone wires and oxygen hoses. They are sealed in by a 400-pound steel door, bolted shut from the outside. There is no way out. They are dangling at the end of a single slender cable, lowering slowly into the darkness off the coast of Bermuda. This was the bathysphere. As Beebe descended, he peered out of a small window made of fused quartz. He was the first human in history to witness the transition of blue. He wrote of a luminous blue that deepened into a blackish blue of undefined brilliance. He described the sheer terror of the isolation, the feeling of being a tiny spark of life suspended in an indifferent, endless cosmos. But he also described the wonder. He saw creatures that no net had ever caught, flashing lights and bizarre shapes that vanished before he could fully comprehend them. He called them dragons and phantoms. Reading his logs, one feels the heavy weight of the silence he experienced. Inside that sphere, the only sounds were the hiss of oxygen and the creaking of the steel as the pressure mounted. Outside, there was only the crushing quiet of the deep. Beebe's journey reminds us that the deep sea is not just a biological location, it is a psychological one. It forces us to confront our own smallness. Suspended in the twilight, we are intruders in a library of ancient life, reading books written in a language of light and shadow that we are only just beginning to learn. As we move deeper still, the last faint traces of the sun are now almost imperceptible. We are entering the lower limits of the mesopelagic. The water here is thick with sensory information, though not for our eyes. The creatures here sense the pressure waves of distant movements. A struggle between predator and prey 100 meters away sends a ripple through the water that feels like a thunderclap to the sensitive lateral lines of the fish living here. It is in this near darkness that we encounter one of the most unsettling evolutionary adaptations, the asymmetric eye. We find the Histioteuthes, often called the cockeyed squid. It is a creature that looks like a biological mistake, a glitch in the design. One of its eyes is enormous, a bulging yellow sphere that looks permanently upward. The other eye is tiny, a small black dot that looks downward. Why such a grotesque disparity? The answer lies in the dual nature of light in the twilight zone. The large eye is a hunter of shadows. It stares up toward the faint surface, trying to detect the silhouette of prey against the dying sun. It captures every last photon available. The small eye, however, has no use for the sun. It looks down into the abyss, scanning for the flashes of bioluminescence, the artificial lights created by other creatures. This squid is a living bridge between two worlds. the world of sunlight above and the world of chemical light below. Its very face is twisted by the need to monitor both the fading past and the dark future. To stare into the face of a cockeyed squid is to see the desperation of the deep. It is not a face of symmetry and beauty as we know it. It is a face of function, warped by the extreme demands of a low-light environment. It creates a feeling of dissonance in us. We value balance. We see symmetry as healthy, as right. Asymmetry feels broken, injured, or wrong. But here, symmetry is a luxury. Survival demands specialization. The squid is not broken. It is perfectly adapted. It is we who are out of place, bringing our aesthetic judgments to a world that does not care for beauty, only for efficiency. The deeper we go, the more the water seems to hum with a quiet tension. We are approaching the boundary where the sunlight will fail completely. The twilight is ending. The creatures around us are becoming more sparse, more solitary. The schools of fish have dispersed. Here, life is a lonely endeavor. The predators that patrol these depths are often slow, drifting hunters. The viperfish hangs in the water, its long dorsal spine tipped with a light organ, lured over its own head like a fishing pole. It does not chase, it waits. There is a profound stillness in this waiting. It is a patience that spans eons. On land, we are governed by the clock, by the rush of hours and minutes. Here, time feels fluid, viscous. A predator might wait days for a single meal. It might float in a state of semi-hibernation, metabolism dialed down to the barest flicker of life, until the moment a sensor twitches. Then, in a fraction of a second, the trap snaps shut. This juxtaposition of endless, frozen stillness and sudden, violent action creates a rhythmic tension in the deep. It is a world of statues that come to life only to kill. As we look out into the deepening gloom, we begin to see sparks. They are faint at first, like the after-images of a bright light when you close your eyes, tiny flashes of blue-green, pinpricks of light that swirl and vanish. We are seeing the language of the deep. In the twilight zone, where the sun is weak, creatures use their own light to communicate, to hide, and to hunt. We see the lanternfish, small and unassuming, but covered in rows of photophores that line its body like the portholes of a tiny submarine. These lights are not random. Each species has a unique pattern, a secret code that allows them to find mates in the dark without alerting predators of a different species. They are swimming constellations, mapping out their identities in the void. But there is a darker side to this light. Some predators have evolved to mimic these codes. They flash the signals of safety, luring the unsuspecting closer. It is a world of deception. Nothing is what it seems. The clear water hides invisible monsters. The silver flash is a mirror, not a fish. The friendly light is a lure. The twilight zone is a hall of illusions, where trust is a fatal error. We are now at the very edge of the mesopelagic. The pressure has doubled since we entered this zone. The temperature is near freezing. The water is heavy, silent, and indifferent. Above us, the surface is a memory, a distant dream of warmth and air. Below us lies the midnight zone, the bathypelagic, a place where the sun has never touched, not once in the 4.5 billion years of Earth's history. As we cross this threshold, the last gray photons of the sun finally surrender. We are enveloped in a darkness so absolute that it feels physical. It is a velvet curtain that wraps around the mind. The only light now is the light we bring with us, or the cold fire of the creatures themselves, the phantoms of the twilight, the glass ghosts, and the mirrored watchers are left behind. We are descending into the kingdom of the monsters, where the lack of light has twisted life into forms that defy all reason. The true creepiness is about to begin. We have now crossed the invisible line. The last desperate photon of sunlight has been extinguished, absorbed by a kilometer of water above our heads. We have entered the bathypelagic zone, the midnight zone. The name itself evokes a sense of stillness and finality. If you were to switch off the external lights of our vessel now, the blackness would be absolute. It is a darkness that feels heavy, a sensory deprivation so complete that the human mind, starved of visual input, would begin to hallucinate, creating flashes of color where there are none. It is the closest experience to nothingness that exists on our planet. And yet, as we wait in the silence, staring out into the void, the darkness is not empty. It begins to twinkle. First, a flash of electric blue in the distance, sharp and sudden like a camera strobe. Then, a slow, pulsating green glow rising from the deep. To our left, a spiral of glowing sparks spins away like a microscopic galaxy. We are not in a tomb. We are in a planetarium. We are surrounded by the living constellations of the eternal night. In this realm, where the sun has never reached, life has taken upon itself the godlike task of creating its own light. This is bioluminescence, the dominant language of the deep ocean. It is estimated that 90% of the creatures living in these waters possess the ability to produce light. They are sparks of defiance against the crushing black. But this light is not the warm thermal glow of a fire or a candle. It is cold light, born of a chemical marriage between a molecule called luciferin and an enzyme called luciferase. When they meet in the presence of oxygen, energy is released not as heat, but as pure, visible light. It is a reaction of perfect efficiency, wasting almost no energy, evolved over millions of years to serve a singular purpose: communication in the dark. However, in the deep sea, communication is rarely a friendly exchange. It is almost always a matter of life and death. The beauty of these lights is a deception. The creepiness of the deep increases here because the rules of safety are inverted. On the surface, light reveals danger. Here, light is the danger. Drifting slowly toward us is the icon of this nightmare world, the humpback anglerfish. It is a creature that seems to have swum straight out of a fever dream. Its skin is a light-absorbing black, rough and bumpy, rendering it invisible in the gloom. It does not really swim. It hovers, a bloated, round shadow suspended in the water. But its most striking feature is the bioluminescent lure that dangles from a modified fin spine on its forehead. This glowing bulb, the esca, hangs just inches in front of its mouth. In the vast emptiness of the bathypelagic, food is terrifyingly scarce. A meal might appear once a week or once a year. There is no energy to spare on chasing prey. So, the anglerfish plays a cruel psychological game. It uses the curiosity of other creatures against them. In the eternal night, a small point of light suggests presence, perhaps a small shrimp or a plankton drift. It signals food. Smaller fish and crustaceans are drawn to it, mesmerized by the glow in the void. They approach with hope. As they draw near, the anglerfish remains perfectly still. It can sense the disturbance in the water. When the prey is close enough to touch the lure, the shadow strikes. The anglerfish has an enormous mouth, lined with translucent, needle-like teeth that fold backward. When it opens its jaws, it creates a sudden vacuum, sucking the water and the prey inside in milliseconds. The teeth then snap back into place, forming a cage from which there is no escape. The light was a lie, the beauty was a trap. There is something deeply unsettling about this method of predation. It exploits the basic instinct to seek light in the darkness. It turns hope into a weapon. And the face of the anglerfish, with its milky blind eyes and its perpetual skeletal grin, adds to the horror. It looks like a skull that has learned to fish. But the creepiness of the anglerfish goes deeper than its eating habits. It extends to its love life. In a world this vast and dark, finding a mate is a statistical impossibility. Two solitary creatures meeting in 1 billion cubic kilometers of black water is a miracle. Nature could not leave this to chance. So, it evolved one of the most bizarre mating rituals on Earth. The fearsome monster we just described is the female. The male is a tiny fraction of her size, a small, simple creature with large nostrils and huge eyes. He is not built for hunting. He is built for searching. He spends his short life sniffing the water for the pheromones of a female. If he finds her, he does not court her. He bites her. He latches onto her belly with his teeth. And then something horrifying happens. He does not let go. Slowly, an enzyme is released that dissolves the skin of his mouth and the skin of her body. Their tissues fuse. Their blood vessels connect. He physically melts into her, losing his eyes, his fins, and his internal organs, until he is nothing more than a pair of gonads attached to her side. He becomes a permanent parasite, providing sperm whenever she needs it. A single female might carry 3 or 4 of these husbands on her body, tiny, absorbed vestiges of lives that once swam free. To us, this loss of self, this physical absorption, is the stuff of body horror fiction. It speaks of a desperation so profound that individuality is sacrificed for the continuation of the species. But in the cold logic of the deep, it is a beautiful solution. It ensures that once a mate is found, they are never lost again. In the loneliness of the bathypelagic, they are bound together forever in the dark. As we drift away from the anglerfish, leaving her to her patient vigil, we become aware of other lights in the distance. Some are flashes of alarm. The Atolla jellyfish, a deep red disk that looks like a siren, has a unique defense. If it is attacked, it does not fight back. Instead, it explodes with a brilliant, rotating display of blue lights. It acts like a burglar alarm. The jellyfish is screaming into the darkness, trying to attract an even bigger predator, a giant squid or a massive shark, to come and eat the creature that is attacking it. It is a high-stakes gamble, summoning a monster to save you from a monster. This chaos of light creates a visual texture to the water that is both mesmerizing and terrifying. But there are some creatures here that have learned to hack the system. We turn our attention to the stoplight loosejaw, a predator that prowls the depths between 1,000 and 2,000 meters. Most creatures in the deep sea are blind to the color red. Red light is absorbed so quickly by water that eyes here have lost the ability to see it. They are tuned only to blue and green. The loosejaw, however, has evolved a secret weapon. It has photophores under its eyes that emit red light, a wavelength invisible to almost everything else in the ocean. It uses this red beam like a sniper's night vision scope. It can scan the water ahead, illuminating its prey without the prey ever knowing it is being watched. It hunts in a private spotlight. To the shrimp it targets, the darkness is absolute, right up until the moment the jaws snap shut. The loose jaw itself is a nightmare of architecture. It has no floor to its mouth, only a hinged jawbone that swings open like a trap door, allowing it to swallow prey larger than itself. It is a skeleton ship sailing through the night, seeing the unseen. The silence here is broken only by the occasional groan of the hull of our imagination resisting the pressure. But outside there is no sound. The silence of the bathypelagic is different from the silence of a quiet room. It is a geological silence. It is the silence of a place where rocks settle and dust falls. Speaking of dust, we notice the marine snow is heavier here. The flakes are larger. We are seeing the remnants of the surface world in decay. This snow is the primary food source for many. It is a reminder that this entire ecosystem is built on the leftovers of the sunlit world. There is a philosophical weight to this realization. The creatures here live in the basement of the world, feeding on the scraps that fall from the table of the sun. They are the bottom of the chain, yet they are the most abundant vertebrates on Earth. The bristle-mouths, tiny, glowing fish that populate this zone, number in the quadrillions. They are the unseen majority of our planet's life, living and dying in the dark, unnoticed by the human history unfolding miles above them. We drift deeper, past 2,000 meters. The cold is intense, hovering just a few degrees above freezing. The water molecules are pressed so tightly together that the density changes. We are approaching the realm of the giants. In the deep, scarcity usually leads to smallness. Conserving energy is key. But paradoxically, it also leads to gigantism. This is known as deep-sea gigantism. We catch a glimpse of a shadow that is far too large to be a fish. It is the giant squid, Architeuthis dux. For centuries, this creature was a myth, the kraken that dragged ships to their doom. In reality, it is a shy, elusive wanderer, but it is massive. Its eyes are the size of dinner plates, the largest eyes in the animal kingdom, designed to spot the faint glow of a sperm whale disturbing the bioluminescent plankton. Seeing a giant squid in its natural habitat is a reminder of how much we still do not know. We have explored the surface of Mars more thoroughly than we have this zone. These creatures are the true owners of the Earth. They glide through the darkness with a majesty that demands respect. Their tentacles, lined with serrated suction cups, trail behind them like the train of a ghostly robe. They are ancient, intelligent, and utterly alien. Why do we find them so unsettling? Perhaps it is the tentacles. We are vertebrate creatures. We understand limbs with joints. We understand arms and legs. A tentacle is a muscular hydrostat. It has no bones, no joints. It can bend in any direction, knot itself, and extend with fluid unpredictability. It represents a form of life that is fundamentally different from our own. To see a limb that is pure muscle and manipulation triggers a primal aversion in the mammalian brain. It is the fear of the snake, amplified to the size of a school bus. As we descend through the bottom of the bathypelagic, the living constellations begin to thin out. We are moving toward the abyss. The water is becoming even clearer, stripped of the abundance of life found in the upper layers. The isolation intensifies. Imagine for a moment the experience of an early astronomer, perhaps Galileo, looking through a telescope at the vast dark between the stars. He must have felt a cold shiver of insignificance. We feel that same shiver now. We are tiny specks in a dark universe of water. The creatures we have met, the glowing anglerfish, the red-eyed loosejaw, the flashing jelly, are the stars of this liquid cosmos. They are lonely beacons burning with a cold fire. But there is a difference between the empty space of the sky and the deep ocean. Space is a vacuum. The ocean is a soup of presence. You are never truly alone here. Even when you cannot see them, you can feel the eyes. The water feels like it is watching you. This paranoia is the final gift of the midnight zone. It strips away the confidence of the surface dweller and replaces it with the humility of the prey. We are now preparing for the next phase of our journey. The pressure outside is becoming astronomical. We are about to enter the abyss, the abyssal zone. If the midnight zone was the realm of the hunter and the hunted, the abyss is the realm of the survivor. The creatures there have endured conditions that would crush a submarine like a soda can. The darkness will remain, but the forms of life will change again, becoming slower, stranger, and even more detached from the logic of the land. As we leave the sparkling fireworks of the midwater behind, let us carry with us the image of the anglerfish's lure, a solitary light in the infinite dark. It is a symbol of the deep sea's central truth. In the deepest shadows, even the light is a lie. We sink further, leaving the stars behind, falling toward the floor of the world. We have descended past the realm of the twilight and the midnight zone, leaving behind the flickering constellations of the bioluminescent hunters. We are now 4,000 meters beneath the surface of the ocean. We have entered the abyss. The name comes from the Greek word abyssos, meaning bottomless, a term coined by ancient scholars who believed the ocean was a hole that went straight through the earth. While we know now that there is a bottom, the sensation here is one of infinite depth. But the defining feature of this zone is not the darkness nor the cold. It is the weight. Imagine standing on the street and holding a small apple in the palm of your hand. That apple represents the weight of the air above you. 1 atmosphere of pressure. It is negligible. You do not feel it. Now, imagine standing in this submersible 4 kilometers down. The weight pressing against the hull is no longer an apple. It is the equivalent of an elephant balanced on every single square inch of the surface. Or, to put it another way, it is like having the entire Empire State Building made of lead resting on your chest. This is hydrostatic pressure. It is a force so immense that it crushes wood until it is dense as stone and compresses styrofoam cups into thimbles the size of a fingertip. It creates a paradox in our minds. We look out into the black water, and we see a world that looks serene, fluid, and weightless. But physics tells us this is a crushing vice. The water here is locked in a permanent, heavy embrace. And yet, incredibly, life is here, and not just microscopic life. We look out into the gloom, and we see giants. This is one of the most baffling and unsettling phenomena of the deep ocean. Deep-sea gigantism. On the land, gravity limits size. An elephant's legs must be thick to support its weight. A bird must be light to fly. But here the water supports the body, and the pressure changes the rules of biology. Creatures that are tiny and insignificant in our gardens or shallow tide pools evolve here into monstrous, hulking forms that defy our sense of scale. Drifting slowly across the sediment-covered floor below us is a creature that triggers a primal recoil in almost everyone who sees it, the giant isopod. To the human eye, it is instantly recognizable, yet horrifyingly wrong. It looks exactly like the common woodlouse or pillbug that you might find curled up under a damp rock in your garden. But a pillbug is a harmless thing, no larger than a fingernail. The creature outside our window is the size of a large house cat. It is a pale, lilac-colored tank of a creature. Its body is segmented, covered in a thick, calcified exoskeleton that acts as a shield against the world. It has 14 legs, all hooked and sharp, which it uses to crawl laboriously through the gray ooze of the seafloor. Its face is a mask of alien neutrality, with 2 large, reflective, triangular eyes that stare blankly into the dark. Watching it move, one gets the sense of a biological machine, a scavenger designed to endure the end of time. Why is it so large? Science offers us a few theories. It is known as Kleiber's law, the observation that larger animals are more efficient with their energy. In the freezing cold of the abyss, where food is a rare luxury, a slow, large body is a battery that lasts longer than a small, frantic one. The giant isopod can go for 5 years without eating. It sits in the mud, perfectly still, a statue of patience, waiting for a whale carcass or a large fish to fall from the heavens. When food arrives, it gorges itself until it can barely move. But there is something undeniably creepy about seeing a backyard insect magnified to the size of a predator. It disrupts our sense of hierarchy. Bugs are supposed to be small. We are supposed to be big. Here, the roles are reversed. As we continue to glide over the abyssal plain, the terrain looks like the surface of the moon. It is covered in a thick layer of ooze, a scientific term for the sediment made of the microscopic silica shells of diatoms and radiolarians that have rained down for millions of years. It is a soft, gray blanket that muffles all sound, and emerging from this silence, striding on legs that seem to go on forever, is the Japanese spider crab. This is the largest arthropod on Earth. From the tip of one claw to the other, it can span nearly 4 meters. That is large enough to straddle a small car. If you were standing on the seabed, its body would be at the level of your chest, while its legs towered over your head. It moves with a slow, deliberate, stilted gait, like a marionette controlled by a tired puppeteer. The spider crab is a master of camouflage, but not by changing color. It allows the sea to reclaim it. Its shell is often covered in sponges, anemones, and barnacles. It becomes a walking reef, a mobile piece of the landscape. This adds to the uncanny nature of its appearance. It looks ancient, like a creature that has been walking these dark plains since before the dinosaurs. Its claws are strong enough to crack open coconuts, yet it uses them with delicate precision to pick apart carrion. There is a specific fear that these creatures unlock, the fear of the arachnid, amplified. We are hardwired to be wary of many-legged things. When that form is scaled up to be larger than a human, it touches a deep ancestral nerve. It feels like an invasion from another world, a war of the world's tripod come to life in the deep ocean. And yet, despite its terrifying appearance, the spider crab is a gentle giant, a slow-moving scavenger that poses no threat to anything that isn't already dead. But how do these creatures survive the crushing pressure that would obliterate a submarine? The answer lies in their composition. We humans are vulnerable because we are full of air spaces, our lungs, our sinuses, our ears. Air is compressible. Under pressure it shrinks, and the structures around it collapse. But the creatures of the abyss have no air. They are made of water. Their flesh is gelatinous. Their bones are fluid-filled and flexible. Since water is virtually incompressible, the pressure inside their bodies is exactly the same as the pressure outside. They do not fight the ocean. They become one with it. This brings us to the philosophical lesson of the abyss. On the surface, We build strength through rigidity. We build steel hulls and concrete walls to resist the elements. In the deep, strength comes from fluidity. The creatures here survive not by resisting the weight of the world, but by yielding to it. They are soft, pliable, and permeable. It is a Taoist victory of water over rock. The blobfish, often mocked for its appearance when dragged to the surface, is a master of this. Down here, it is not a melted pile of goo. It is a buoyant, efficient glider. We call it ugly only because we have destroyed its context. We have dragged it from its home and blamed it for not looking like us. As we move deeper into the abyss, the diversity of life changes. We see fewer fish and more invertebrates. We encounter the holothurians, the sea cucumbers. But these are not the sausage-shaped lumps found in tide pools. These are the sea pigs. They are small, pink, translucent tubes with swollen legs that look like water-filled balloons. They march in herds of hundreds across the seafloor, grazing on the mud. They look almost cute in a grotesque way, like unfinished biological sketches. They are fragile, composed almost entirely of water. If you were to touch one, it would feel like a wet plastic bag. Yet these simple creatures rule the abyss. They make up the vast majority of the biomass on the deep ocean floor. They are the kings of the mud, the silent processors of the Earth's waste. The pacing of the documentary itself must slow down here, for time itself behaves differently in the abyss. The cold slows down chemical reactions. Nerves fire slower, hearts beat slower. We drift past a Greenland shark, a creature that visits these depths. It moves with a lethargy that looks like sleepwalking. This shark is the oldest vertebrate on Earth. Some individuals alive today were swimming in the ocean when the Pilgrims landed in America. They can live for 400 or 500 years. They do not reach sexual maturity until they are 150 years old. Think about that scale of time. While empires rose and fell on the surface, while wars were fought and cities were built, this shark was slowly, quietly swimming through the dark, its heart beating only a few times a minute. It is a living time capsule. The deep sea preserves not just ancient forms, but ancient lives. The creepiness here transforms into awe. We are in the presence of elders. The rush of human life seems frantic and trivial compared to the slow, majestic, freezing march of the abyssal timeline. The silence is absolute now. We are far below the scattering layer of the ocean. There are no whales singing here. There is only the sound of your own blood in your ears. In this silence, the visual oddities stand out even more. We see the big red jellyfish, Tiburonia granrojo. It does not have stinging tentacles. Instead, it has thick, fleshy arms that it uses to wrestle prey. It is a deep, velvety red, a color that renders it invisible. It tumbles through the water like a severed heart, pulsing slowly. It is a creature of simple, brutal elegance. As we scan the horizon of the abyss, we realize that the monsters here are not monsters of aggression. They are monsters of efficiency. The fang-toothed fish, Anoplogaster cornuta, has teeth so large it cannot close its mouth. It looks terrifying, a demon of the deep. But it is only the size of a grapefruit. It is almost blind. It bumps into things in the dark to find food. Its terrifying teeth are just a basket to ensure that if it finds a shrimp, the shrimp stays found. It is a desperate biological solution to a world of scarcity. We are observing a world that is fundamentally hostile to life as we know it, yet life has conquered it. It has done so by becoming slow, by becoming large and by becoming soft. The hydrostatic pressure, the crush of the oceans, has sculpted these beings into shapes that haunt our dreams. But they are not haunting us. They are ignoring us. They are indifferent to our existence. They were here long before us, and in the slow, cold dark, they will likely be here long after us. But scarcity creates more than just strange shapes. It creates a hunger that drives evolution to its most extreme limits. As we prepare to leave the abyssal plains and look toward the deep trenches, the Hadal zone, we must confront the reality of starvation. In a place where a meal falls once a year, the body becomes a weapon of consumption. We are moving from the land of the giants to the land of the insatiable jaws. The pressure has built the stage, but the hunger writes the script. Let us drift for a moment longer in the presence of the spider crabs and the silent sharks. Let us feel the weight of the 4 kilometers of water above us. It is a blanket of blue turned to black, a shield that has protected this world from the chaos of the sun. We are visitors in a cathedral of heavy water, watching the slow procession of the giants. Hunger is a feeling we think we understand. To us, inhabitants of the sunlit world, hunger is a temporary discomfort, a rhythmic signal that rises and falls with the passing of the hours. It is a nuisance to be solved with a visit to a pantry or a market. But as we drift deeper into the black heart of the ocean, past the 4-kilometer mark, hunger ceases to be a feeling. It becomes a state of being. It becomes the architect of the body. In the bathypelagic and abyssal zones, food is not a guarantee. It is a statistical anomaly. A creature living here might wait weeks, months, or even years for a single morsel of prey to cross its path. This profound scarcity has driven evolution to discard the rules of proportion and modesty. Here, the need to eat has warped biology into shapes that seem designed by a madman, creating the creepiness that unsettles us so deeply. It is the creepiness of the open mouth, the unhinging jaw, and the stomach that knows no bottom. We are drifting now through a void that seems empty. The water is clear, cold, and still. There are no schools of fish here, no vibrant reefs. There is only the dark. But out of this darkness emerges a shape that defies all anatomical logic. It is the pelican eel, also known as the gulper eel. At first, it looks like a shadow puppet, a strange line drawn in ink against the water. Its tail is long, whip-like, and impossibly thin, tipped with a tiny, glowing lure that pulses pink and red. But it is the head that captures the horror and the wonder of this zone. The head is not a head at all. It is a mouth with a small skull attached to it as an afterthought. The jaws are enormous, taking up a quarter of the animal's total length. It looks like a black umbrella that has been stripped of its fabric, leaving only the terrifying hinged frame. When the gulper eel is resting, this massive mouth is folded up, collapsed against its body to streamline its movement. But when it detects prey, perhaps a small squid or a shrimp drawn to the glowing light of its tail, the transformation is instantaneous and grotesque. The jaw unhinges, the mouth inflates like a sudden balloon, creating a massive sphere of water. It does not bite, it engulfs. It creates a vacuum so sudden and so large that the prey is pulled in along with gallons of seawater. This is not hunting as we know it. This is dredging. The eel is a living net. Its stomach is made of a material so elastic that it can stretch to accommodate prey larger than the eel itself. Imagine a snake swallowing a basketball. That is the reality of the gulper eel. It is a design born of desperation, If you only eat once a year, you cannot afford to be picky. You cannot afford to let anything escape. You must become a creature that is mostly mouth, a swimming void ready to consume whatever the universe offers. As we leave the eel to digest its meal in the dark, we encounter another nightmare of gluttony, the black swallower. If the gulper eel is strange, the black swallower is horrifying. It is a small fish, barely 25 centimeters long, with scales the color of burnt wood. It looks at first glance like a normal fish, but its secret lies in its belly. We observe one drifting past us now. Its abdomen is distended, hanging below it like a translucent sac. Inside that sac, visible through the stretched skin of the predator, is the curled-up body of a whole fish. A fish that is twice the size of the swallower itself. The black swallower has a jaw that can dislocate completely, allowing it to walk its mouth over prey that should, by all rights, be eating it. There is something deeply disturbing about seeing the victim inside the victor, coiled up like a fetus in a womb of death. It is a visual representation of greed, but here, greed is survival. Sometimes, however, the ambition of the swallower exceeds its capacity. They have been found floating dead on the surface, their stomachs burst open. They swallowed prey so large that it began to decompose before it could be digested. The gas from the rotting victim inflated the predator like a balloon, dragging it up from the safety of the deep to the lethal low pressure of the surface. It is a tragic end, killed by the very meal that was meant to save it. These encounters with individual hunters paint a picture of a lonely, dog-eat-dog world. But there are moments in the deep sea when the solitude is broken. There are moments of frantic, chaotic abundance. We are speaking of the whale fall. Imagine a great sperm whale dying at the surface. Perhaps it was old, or perhaps it was struck by a ship. As the life leaves its massive body, it begins to sink. It falls through the epipelagic, past the sharks and the tunas. It falls through the twilight zone, past the staring eyes of the hatchetfish. It falls through the midnight zone, a silent gray mountain descending into the clouds. Finally, after hours or days of falling, it crashes into the abyssal plain with a soft, heavy thud, kicking up a plume of sediment that takes days to settle. This carcass is not just a dead body. To the deep sea, it is an event. It is the equivalent of 1,000 years of marine snow arriving all at once. It is an oasis falling from the sky, and the smell of it spreads through the water like a siren song. First come the mobile scavengers, the sleeper sharks, moving with their slow, lethargic sweeps of the tail. They tear at the flesh, taking massive bites. Then come the hagfish. These are ancient, jawless creatures, unchanged for 300 million years. They look like pink eels, blind and slimy. They have no true jaws, only a rasping tongue lined with cartilage teeth. They burrow into the whale, entering through the mouth, the eyes or open wounds, eating the carcass from the inside out. A hagfish is a creature of nightmares. If you grab one, it exudes a slime so thick and fibrous that it can choke a shark. It can tie its own body into a knot and slide the knot down its length to scrape the slime off or to leverage a piece of meat from a bone. To see a whale carcass covered in writhing hagfish is to see the recycling plant of nature in its most visceral form. It is chaotic, violent, and messy, but it is also beautiful. The death of one whale supports a complex ecosystem for decades. As the flesh is stripped away, leaving only the massive white ribs curving up from the mud like the arches of a ruined cathedral, the strangest guests arrive. We see red, flower-like plumes blooming from the bone. They look like plants, swaying in the gentle current. But plants cannot live here. There is no sun. These are the Osidax worms, the zombie worms. They have no mouth, they have no stomach, they have no eyes. They are merely a tube with a flower of gills at the top and a network of green roots at the bottom. These roots secrete acid that dissolves the hard calcium of the whalebone, allowing the worm to tap into the rich oils and fats trapped inside the skeleton. They are eating the bones of the Leviathan. Think of the patience required for this evolution. These worms exist only to find whale bones. They drift as microscopic larvae through the infinite dark, waiting for the 1-in-a-million chance to land on a skeleton. If they land on mud, they die. If they land on rock, they die. Only bone will do. It seems an impossible strategy, yet here they are, carpeting the ribs in a velvet layer of red. It reminds us that life is tenacious. It will find a way to consume every last atom of energy, no matter how locked away it seems. The concept of the creepy takes on a different texture here. It is not the jump scare of a movie monster. It is the creeping realization of the relentless efficiency of nature. Nothing is wasted. The abyss is a place of absolute recycling. The whale that once breached in the sun, breathing air and singing to its kin, now feeds the blind worms in the eternal dark. It is a somber connection between the two worlds. The energy of the sun, captured by the plankton, eaten by the krill, eaten by the whale, finally comes to rest here, fueling the strange, alien geometry of the deep. We move on from the graveyard of the whale, drifting back into the open silence. The water pressure is immense now. We are nearing the bottom of the abyssal zone. The creatures here are adapting not just to hunger, but to the crushing weight. We see the goblin shark, a relic of a prehistoric age. Its skin is pink and flabby, lacking the sleek muscle of surface sharks. It looks old, weary. Its snout is a long, flat blade that protrudes from its forehead, covered in sensory pores to detect the weak electric fields of prey. But watch its mouth. When it senses a crab or a deep-sea squid, the jaws do not just open, they shoot forward. The jaws are loosely attached to the skull, held by elastic ligaments. In a fraction of a second, the entire mouth slingshots out of the face, extending inches forward to snatch the prey before retracting back under the snout. It looks like the inner mouth of the creature from the film Alien. It is a mechanism of pure horror to our eyes, but a mechanism of necessity to the shark. In the slow-motion world of the cold dark, that sudden ballistic strike is the difference between life and death. As we observe these feeding mechanisms, the nets, the traps, the expanding stomachs, the dissolving roots, we realize that the deep sea is defined by a singular, overwhelming force, the infinite hunger. It is a hunger that has shaped the face of every creature here. It has stripped away the cosmetic beauty of the surface world and left only the raw machinery of survival. There is a quiet elegance to it, if you look past the grotesque. There is no cruelty here, only need. The anglerfish does not hate the shrimp. It simply needs the carbon. The black swallower is not a glutton. It is a battery charging itself for the long, empty months ahead. We project our own emotions onto these faces. We see malice in the upturned jaw and evil in the needle teeth. But the ocean does not know evil. It knows only balance. The creepiness we feel is perhaps a reflection of our own fear of scarcity. We are creatures of abundance. We fear the cold. We fear the dark. We fear the hunger that changes us. Down here, those fears are the reality. And the creatures have not just faced them, they have embraced them. They have let the hunger sculpt them into the perfect survivors of the void. We are now approaching the edge of the final frontier. The ocean floor is dropping away beneath us again. The abyssal plains are giving way to the deep trenches, the cracks in the crust of the earth. We are about to enter the Hadal zone. The term comes from Hades, the underworld of the dead. It is a place of extremes that defy imagination. Here, the hunger will be joined by an isolation so profound that it feels like leaving the planet entirely. The creatures we will meet next are the outliers of the outliers. They live in the wounds of the world. As we descend into the trench, the silence becomes a physical weight. The water is no longer just dark. It is heavy with the memories of the Earth's formation. We are going to the bottom. Let us take a moment to appreciate the creatures we leave behind in the abyss. The gulper eel floating like a black ribbon. The zombie worms blooming on the white bone. They are the gatekeepers of the deep, the consumers of the lost. We pass them by, sinking lower, guided by gravity into the deepest scars of our blue planet. The map of the world as we know it ends here. We have descended past the sunlit shallows, drifted through the twilight, navigated the midnight constellations, and crossed the vast, muddy plains of the abyss. We have reached a depth of 6,000 meters. To go any deeper is to leave the open ocean behind and enter the wounds of the planet. These are the trenches. This is the Hadal zone. The name is derived from Hades, the ancient Greek god of the underworld, the brother of Zeus and Poseidon, the keeper of the dead. It is a fitting title. These trenches are long, narrow scars cut into the crust of the earth, formed where massive tectonic plates collide, and one is forced violently beneath the other. We are entering the subduction zones, the places where the ocean floor is destroyed and recycled into the mantle. It is a place of geological violence, yet the feeling here is one of absolute suffocating stillness. Imagine standing on the summit of Mount Everest, the highest point on our world. Now, imagine turning that mountain upside down and plunging it into the ocean. If you place the peak of Everest at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, its base would still be 2 kilometers underwater. That is the scale of the darkness into which we are now sinking. We are 11 kilometers from the air. We are 7 miles deep. The water here is different. It is not just dark, it is ancient. The water molecules pressing against our hull have not seen the surface for centuries, and the pressure is no longer a weight. It is a crushing, omnipresent force of nature. At the bottom of the Challenger Deep, the pressure is over 1,000 times that of the surface. It is 8 tons per square inch. To step outside would be like trying to hold up 50 jumbo jets. At this intensity, chemistry itself begins to warp. The membranes of cells should dissolve. Proteins, the building blocks of life, should be crushed and distorted, unable to fold into the shapes necessary for biology to function. And yet, as we touch down on the bottom, kicking up a slow-motion cloud of beige silt, we are not alone. The creepiness of the Hadal zone is not found in teeth or glowing lures. We have left the realm of the angry monsters behind. The anglerfish and the viperfish cannot survive here. Their bodies are too complex. Their air bladders would implode. Their proteins would fail. The creepiness here is found in the uncanny simplicity. It is found in the ghost-like nature of the survivors. Gliding just above the seafloor is the ethereal Mariana snailfish. It is the deepest living fish ever discovered. It does not look like a survivor of hell. It looks like a tadpole or a wet tissue floating in the current. It is pink, translucent, and scaleless. Its skin is so thin you can almost see its liver. It has small black eyes that serve no purpose in this lightless world. It moves with a gentle, undulating grace, seemingly oblivious to the fact that it is swimming inside a hydraulic press. This creature is unsettling because it looks so fragile. In a world of iron-hard pressure, we expect armor. We expect thick shells and heavy scales. But the snailfish has gone the other way. It survives by being entirely fluid. It has evolved a skeleton made mostly of cartilage, which is flexible. Its skull is not a closed box, but unhinged to allow pressure to equalize. And inside its cells, it holds a secret weapon, a molecule called trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO. This chemical acts as a brace, holding its proteins in shape against the crushing weight. It is the same chemical that gives rotting fish their distinctive smell on the surface. Down here, it is the perfume of life. There is a profound cognitive dissonance in watching this delicate pink ghost drift over the bottom of the world. It challenges our understanding of strength. We think strength is hardness. The snailfish teaches us that true strength is adaptability. It thrives where a submarine made of titanium would groan and buckle. But the snailfish is not the only resident of Hades. Crawling through the sediment are the amphipods. On the surface, these are the tiny sandhoppers you flick off your beach towel. Here, in the phenomenon known as abyssal gigantism, they have grown to the size of your hand. The Hirandelia gigas is a supergiant amphipod, a pale armored crustacean that acts as the vacuum cleaner of the trench. They are swarmers. If a piece of food falls here, perhaps the sunken remains of a wooden ship or a curious fish that strayed too deep, they emerge from the silt in the thousands. They strip the object to nothing. They have enzymes capable of digesting wood, plastic, and even the toughest connective tissues. Seeing a swarm of these pale, insect-like creatures writhing in the silence triggers a deep, instinctual revulsion. It is the fear of the swarm, the hive mind at the bottom of the dark. The silence here is the loudest sound you will ever hear. It is a silence that isolates the soul. When human beings first descended this deep, they spoke of the psychological weight of the separation. In 1960, Don Walsh and Jacques Picard descended in the Trieste. As they neared the bottom, a loud crack echoed through their small steel sphere. It was a plexiglass window fracturing under the pressure. They chose to continue. When they landed, they looked out at a world of gray ooze. They were the first eyes to see the bottom of the container of the world. They stayed only 20 minutes, but in that short time, they proved that the ocean is a single, connected living space. They saw life, and if life is here, then there is no place on earth where life cannot be. However, there is a darker realization that comes with visiting the Hadal Zone today. Even here, in the most remote, hostile, and inaccessible point on the planet, we find traces of ourselves. Recent expeditions have found plastic bags half buried in the sediment at 10,000 meters. We have found microplastics in the stomachs of the amphipods. The creepiness shifts from the biological to the existential. We have managed to ghost haunt places we cannot even physically visit. Our garbage arrived before we did. It is a somber reflection on the reach of our species. We are haunting the deep sea, not with our presence, but with our refuse. As we hover in this alien canyon, we must consider the concept of limits. For a long time, scientists believed life could not exist this deep. Then they found the snailfish. Now they believe the theoretical limit for fish is around 8,200 meters. Below that, the pressure becomes so intense that even TMAO cannot stop cells from becoming rigid. The water inside the cells would become too dense for biology to function. We call this the complex life boundary. Below this depth, there are only bacteria, viruses, and mats of microbial life. It creates a feeling of a threshold. We are standing at the edge of existence. Beyond this pressure, the chemistry of life as we know it simply stops working. The physics of the universe says no more. To be here is to stand at the wall of the impossible, and yet the bacteria thrive. They form mats on the rocks, feeding on the chemical energy releasing from the subducting plates. They are chemotrophs, eating the earth itself. They do not need the sun. They do not need oxygen from the air. If the sun were to go out tomorrow and the surface of the earth were frozen to a cinder, the life in the bottom of the Mariana Trench would not know for 1,000 years. They are disconnected from our apocalypse. They represent a reservoir of life that is safe from the chaos of the sky. This brings a strange comfort. We often fear the deep sea because it is dark and cold. We project our fear of death into it. But the Hadal Zone is not a place of death. It is a place of extreme perseverance. It is a nursery of resilience. It is time to leave. We cannot stay here. We belong to the low-pressure world of gas and light. We release our ballast weights. They fall into the soft mud, leaving a permanent mark of our visit. We begin to rise. The ascent is slow. We watch the depth gauge tick backward. 11,000 meters, 10,000. We leave the snailfish behind in their silent, crushing home. We rise past the black swallower and the gulper eel, past the hungry mouths of the abyss. We rise past the giant squid and the sperm whales, past the glowing constellations of the midnight zone. We see the first hint of gray light at the top of the twilight zone. The sun. It looks small and weak at first, but as we rise it grows stronger. The blue returns. The big blue wraps around us again. The red light returns, bringing color back to the world. We break the surface. The light is blinding. The air rushes in, smelling of salt and wind. The sound of the waves is deafening after the silence of the trench. We are back in the world of men, back in the world of speed, noise, and gravity. But as we look back at the water, smooth and glittering under the sun, we see it differently now. It is no longer just a blue surface. We know what lies beneath. We know that the ocean is a layered cake of realities, each with its own rules, its own time, and its own monsters. We have asked why deep-sea creatures get creepier the deeper you go. The answer is not that they are trying to be scary. It is that they are trying to survive in a world that gets harder and harder to live in. They strip away the luxuries of color, of shape, of symmetry. They become eyes, mouths, and stomachs. They become ghosts and jelly. They become what the pressure demands they become. The creepiness is simply the face of survival in the extreme. It is the look of life holding on in the dark. And there is a beauty in that horror. A beauty in the fact that even in the deepest, darkest, coldest crack in the earth, life found a way to say, "I am here." So, the next time you stand on the shore and watch the waves roll in, remember the glass octopus, the vampire squid, and the Mariana snailfish. Remember the silence of the Hadal Trench, and remember that we live on a thin shell of air floating above a deep, dark universe that is teeming with the strange, the wonderful, and the terrifying.